having notes with me because I don't want to get any names or dates wrong as I take you through our museums. But I do want to say at the beginning, I am Marca Daley, and it's so good to see you and so good to see familiar faces here, Eastham faces. The one I'm missing so far is my sister. So virtual tours. Some of you cannot raise your hand on this, but those of you who don't know, how many museums do we have? How many what? Museums. Four. We do. And if this works, there they are. So, top left, clockwise around. Would anyone like to name our museum? Tell us which ones they are.
Upper left is Captain Pennant.
Upper left is not Captain Pennant. Schoolhouse. Schoolhouse. Next to the schoolhouse.
Swift-Daley.
Swift-Daley. Note that my name is Daley. There's a connection there. Below the Swift-Daley House.
The beach house.
The beach house, we call it the beach camp. It's the A. Thomas Dill Beach Camp, which used to be out on the Spit. And right next to that, the lower corner, the Tool Museum, which was my grandfather's tool shop. And so more about all of those later. So 23, a lot of people say, we don't know where these museums are. So this one is at 2375 State Highway, right next to the post office, the Central Post Office. And the whole, we call it a complex, which makes it sound really important and big. It's very important, but it's not super big. The 1741 Swift-Daley House. My grandmother and grandfather bought that house in 1939. They've been coming to the Cape for 7 years. And my grandmother wanted a project. She wanted a house to restore. You couldn't see the house from what is now the highway. It was behind the trees. It had been abandoned from the early 20s and was a wreck, really. But they found it and they restored it. And we spent our childhoods there, I guess every day of our childhoods. The Ranlett Tool Museum was Grandpa's tool shop. And he actually made cement blocks out there. But Chester Ranlett, gets explained later, so I won't take the time now. The Dill Beach Camp belonged to Tommy Dill. Tommy still lives across the street, down behind what used to be Jasper's surf shop, but it's now Buddha Bob's. And so we were all one neighborhood. And the old gift shop was it's on the site of what was the old goat house. We didn't have the beach camp there when I was a kid, obviously. That was on the outer beach. But we did have a pigsty, a barn, chicken coops, and the goat house. And it was a wonderful, wonderful childhood right there. So that's my connection to the Swift-Daley. People ask, why Swift-Daley House? So this is taken from a booklet that we put out for the 50th anniversary of the schoolhouse, the Swift-Daley House belonging to the Historical Society. My grandfather and my grandmother over there, Ray and Verena, restored the house. It took them about 10 years, from 1939 to 1949. And Grandpa died in 1972. My grandmother asked my father and my aunt if they wanted the house. And their answer was unanimous, and it was, hell no. Because there was no heat. You couldn't insulate it, you froze in winter, and you were sweating in the summer. The bedrooms were up little lofts, you'll see what they're like. So she deeded it to the Historical Society on the condition that she could live there for the rest of her life, which she did with gusto. And she collected antiques, and she, encouraged people to donate, and she gave tours, and there were docents, and so, until she passed away at the ripe old age of 95, she was very much involved with the house. The Swifts were Gustave and Nathaniel Swift, and Gustavus, they called him Stave, married Ann Higgins, an Eastham girl. And they had a meat packing business down by Thumpertown. You'll see Swift Road. And there's more about that in the video too, so I tend to go on. Their ownership only lasted a few years. Stave and Ann went on to Chicago. The Swift Meat Packing Company was formed out there. And Nathaniel stayed for another year or so. But by the time the Civil War began, they were back in Sandwich, Barnstable area where they had grown up. So that's where it got its name. The plan of the house is very intentional. And it's a full cape facing east. You can read this part. So the front door is towards the east, and on one side, either side, there are two main rooms. And the two main rooms in this case are the parlor and the hall, the master bedroom. And then behind the central fireplace, both of those rooms had their own fireplaces. Behind that was the keeping room, the really large room. More about that later. And on either side of that, smaller bedrooms, the buttery, or otherwise known as the pantry, and more about all of that in some of the videos. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms. I think in one of the videos, they explained the bowed roof, and how you get an extra 12 inches from that type of construction, so that you didn't have to always bend over when you were upstairs. So the keeping room, all of these pictures with the labels on them, they're from a booklet that the guides use, and that if people come in and they want to do a self-guided tour, they don't want someone following them around like me and talking to them all the time. They can take the booklet themselves and stand in the room and then see descriptions of what's there. And so I like that, and so I won't explain them because they're explained in the videos. But the keeping room, I will say, was the heart of the household, and definitely the hearth was the heart of the household because everything was focused there. Another view of the keeping room and the pantry, the buttery. There are some, this is from the booklet also. The parlor. This photo is wonderful, and I did not take it with my own camera. Most of the others I did. Anton, what's his last name, who takes all the photos at the library? Yeah, not Bruckner or something like that.
No.
Anyway, he took this photo when he came to visit once, and it's wonderful, and he gave them to me and said I could use them, so I have. The parlor is Victorian in nature, and the mantle shows the pictures of the Swifts. And it's just a different era. The keeping room is more of the 18th century living, and the parlor is 19th century. The hall, the main bedroom, I love this room. It was my grandparents' bedroom downstairs. And again, from the booklet, but all of these things will be explained in the videos. I'm not sure about the little heart. This is a 30-inch wide board that they uncovered when they went to break the wall and make a closet. And right up here, there's a small heart carved into that board. And they said, we can't make the closet. So there are no closets downstairs, except for one under the old back staircase. And I really appreciate my grandparents for leaving that. And it's really special. The upstairs bedrooms, this is the main bedroom. I think, Patsy, you might have spent part of your childhood in that bedroom. It was one of the ad. And the little one under the eaves on the right, that was my father's room when he was a teenager. Funny story, he was kept back a year in school because he missed so much school. And that's because he loved working on the house so much. And it didn't bother him at all. He went on to become a contractor and builder and everything, and had a love of old homes always. We have a quilt collection and a clothing collection, and they're upstairs. But we also have booklets about them for people who, number one, can't do the stairs or don't want to do the stairs. But they're up there, not now, but everything's, we unwrap the house in the spring and we wrap it up in the fall. And so the house is wrapped now. And nothing that's of clothing or anything is out. You can't see it. So that's why I'm here today, so that you can. And the quilts are all donated and the clothing is all donated. And I just put down a few of the different patterns that we have on the quilts that are at the house. Some people aren't interested in all and others love it. So that's why we have a special booklet on just the quilts for them. This was my very first attempt at a video during COVID, and it's all about the Swift-Daley complex. It's 6 minutes.
The Eastham Historical Society would like to welcome you to the Swift-Daley House, located right next to the Eastham Post Office in Eastham on beautiful Cape Cod. The house was built in 1741 and is a full cape which was restored to its original condition by the Daley family in the early 40s. More on the house later. The Ranlett Tool Museum is located behind the Swift-Daley House. On display are hundreds of tools and farm equipment, many of them unusual and unique to this area. Children and adults alike get a hands-on experience in the tool shop and have fun trying to guess the uses of different tools and machines. Here, for example, is a working cranberry sorter. And the forge on the premises operates at the whim of the blacksmith, but always on Tool Discovery Day. The Dill Beach Camp is also on the same site. Built in 1936, it's furnished as it was when used as a hunting and fishing camp. No space is wasted inside the tiny living space. The camp is the only one to have survived the blizzard of 1978 that ravaged the fragile beach spits south of the Coast Guard station. Moved to its present location in 1995, it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. The old gift shop sits on the site of the old goat house, and is filled with fascinating treasures, from antiques to handcrafted items from local artisans. The Daley family bought the house, set on 13 acres of land, in 1939 for $2,100. Over the next few years, they worked to restore the house, rebuilding the central chimney with its 3 working fireplaces, and removing layers and layers of paint and wallpaper to get down to the original wood. Here they are by the front door: Marston, Ray, Verena, and Dorcas. Verena also opened a home bakery, which she operated for the first 10 years of her retirement. But by the 1970s, they were truly enjoying retirement, at least in the summer months. Ray died in 1972, and in 1974, Verena gave the house to the Historical Society in his memory. She remained living there and gave tours of her home once it became a museum. Verena loved the whole house, but her favorite room remained the kitchen. Here she is with her favorite African violets in the mid-1980s. The keeping room was the center of the house and family life. All the cooking was done here in the fireplace, the largest of the 3 in the home, which included a bake oven to the side and an S-hook for hanging kettles and pots. Off the keeping room were a pantry and 2 small bedrooms, the boarding room on the south side and the morning room on the north, one for births and one for deaths. Most all the period furniture, china, and kitchen utensils here were donated. The hall, or master bedroom, also has its own fireplace, but no closets. Most of the furniture and memorabilia is from the 19th century and includes a sleigh bed covered by a crazy quilt, along with a chamber pot chair, an Empire period commode, and a Victorian dresser. The parlor was reserved for formal visits, including from the minister. Its furnishings include a hand-loomed carpet, a melodeon, a flat spinning wheel, and photographs of the Swift brothers who lived in the home in the mid-1800s. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs and a large open attic under the eaves. Period quilts and clothing are displayed, along with handmade beds, washstands, bureaus, cradles, and several intriguing tools. The kitchen was an add-on in the mid-1800s, but the cabinets were put in by the Daley family in 1939. In the late 40s, Dorcas, the daughter, painted the cabinets with caricatures of the family in the style of Peter Hunt, who was very popular at the time. And here we are, standing in the post office parking lot on the south side of the house, looking back towards the Dill Beach Camp and the Ranlett Tool Museum. We hope you've enjoyed this very short tour of our Swift-Daley complex. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon in person.
That was my very first. I just said it was second sentence, 7-second intervals. And then tried to fit in whatever I was saying later. Whoa. I got better as we went along. So the Dill Beach Camp. On the far left, that's a picture of the camp out on the spit. You'll notice that it was a huge fieldstone fireplace in there and chimney. It's on the National Register of Historic Buildings. And the video that you'll see is narrated by Mo Andujar, who was the curator for many, many years there. And the Bustard sisters came back to visit. They spent 10 summers in this camp. And they have wonderful memories and they allowed us to record them. So here's this video. Let's see. I get better, watch the video.
The Eastham Historical Society welcomes you to the Dill Beach Camp. Located at the Swift-Daley complex, right next to the Eastham Post Office, this little shack tells a compelling story of Eastham's relationship to its neighbor to the east, the Atlantic Ocean, especially the complex relationship between the sea and the shore on the great outer beach. In 2006, the Provincetown Banner described the camp as one of the last remnants of the era of the outermost house, when beach shacks still dotted the sand spit south of Coast Guard Beach. This short video, narrated by Mo Andujar, curator of the Swift-Daley House and Dill Beach Camp, invites you to return to that era for a glimpse into life on the beach. The beach camp, one of 9 on this fragile spit of land, was built by Herman Dill in 1935 for use as a gunning camp for duck hunting. It started out as a 12 by 16 foot single room that was later expanded to 16 by 20 feet, perhaps to accommodate the increasing number of summer visitors, some who returned year after year to live a simple life in the dunes, at least for a few weeks each summer. The Bustard sisters, Judy and Nancy, and their parents were regular visitors from the late 40s to 1959. Recently, Judy and Nancy visited the beach camp and reminisced about summers spent at the camp. While on vacation, the sisters often walked down the beach to the outermost house. They said that Henry Veston would be there all the time. Not only did they rent the shack, but also the Green Demon. Tommy Dill, the owner's son, let renters use the Dill's Green Demon to get to and from the camp.
Oh, we love the picture of the two of you on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And is it correct that's how you got out to the beach camp?
Oh, yeah.
It was on the back of the Green
You know, we
Demon.
park our Chevy right there in the parking lot. You know, no stickers or anything needed, and just took the Green Demon out.
And Tommy would be the driver?
No, my mom, it was there.
Oh,
That
actually,
came
it's
to
for
the cottage.
you to use.
Yeah, that was for us. That came to the cottage. Yeah, because we would come and go.
And you'd leave the Green Demon in front of the camp.
Yeah.
And then come back and. That's convenient.
No, we would park it up right off the parking.
It seems that every visitor to the shack, vacationers and locals alike, wanted to leave their calling cards and signatures of former visitors can still be seen on the inside door keys. The shack has a single door and windows on all 4 sides, 1 in the entryway, 2 in the kitchen area, and 3 in the main room. It also has a small roof deck reached by a ladder or rope ladders that are stored inside. An interesting note, the windows that used to face east and the ocean side now face west towards the bay side. Some of the glass panes have been replaced, but some are the originals. Scoured to a foggy hue
by years and years' worth of wind-blown sand. Even these original wooden shutters couldn't protect them. The shack may have been situated on a remote sand dune, but it was not without its conveniences, including a flush toilet in a small bathroom with a sink. The sisters explain.
Bathroom on the wall facing the toilet. Tommy had put some vases around a lot of pine holes and, so we would sit there and look at that. And then every time we flushed the toilet, you had to come out and pump 100 pumps.
Yeah.
To fill the tank up. So you have to do.
I've added that to my tour now, that since you explained that process to me.
Oh, yeah.
The kitchen area was also fully equipped with a pump in the kitchen sink, a refrigerator and a stove which ran on propane, an iron, built-in shelves, and kerosene lamps. The main room was living room, dining room, and bedroom, all in one. The Provincetown Banner article describes it: rockers, rickety leg chairs, and an old wooden table sit beside a bunk bed made of yellow pine. There is a mantelpiece strewn with beachcombers' booty, like old bottles and clamshells, and handsome duck decoys decorate the nooks and crannies between the rafters. There is even a duck hunting boat on display, where a smaller bunk for children used to back up against the bathroom wall. There used to be a fireplace and stone chimney at the shack, but it was taken down when the shack was moved. All that remains is the mantel. In February of 1978, what locals call a hurricane blizzard destroyed the beach camps on the Spit, including Henry Veston's Folksome, which was the farther south of the camps. These photos tell the story. The Dill Beach Camp was the only survivor. In 1980, Tommy Dill had the camp taken off the beach, put on a flatbed, and moved around to the marsh side of the inlet where it stayed until 1995, when Don Sparrow, then president of the Eastham Historical Society, convinced Tommy to move it to the Swift-Daley complex. What a job that was. Here are some photos. 3 members of the Historical Society played key roles in the move across the highway at 6 a.m. on a warm autumn day. Bill Ryder, Tom Lennox, and Chester Ranlett. Today, the beach camp is recognized on the National Register of Historic Places, and it is also a favorite place of families when they visit the Swift-Daley complex. If they are very lucky, Tommy might be here, reminiscing and telling tales of the 4 decades of summers spent with fishermen, duck hunters, beach walkers, and visitors at his family's camp on the outer beach. In June 2015, Cape Cod historian and writer Don Wilding wrote in the Cape Codder that the Eastham beach camps have become forgotten relics of a bygone era. All but one. The Dill Beach Camp allows us to recall that bygone era, now safely tucked away in the confines of the Eastham Historical Society's Swift-Daley House complex.
All photos and narrative information are from the archives of the Eastham Historical Society or the private files of Marca Daley. We hope you enjoyed this short story of the beach camp, and thank you for joining us.
So the next one is the Ranlett Tool Museum, which, as I said, used to be Grandpa's tool shop. And we get better and better, I think, with these videos. Oh. I guess I don't go to the video right away. Wait, no, I don't. This is one of my great nieces. Kids love the tool shop. And we don't have Tool Discovery Day anymore. It used to be one day. Now, every single Tuesday afternoon, they're there, there's someone at the forge, and families, you know, people are interested in the old tools and the little kids get to try them, and, you know, it's just wonderful. So it's always a busy place. As I just put these in because I love these photos. Here's the video. This is Mark Herman, the curator, and he's one of our several blacksmiths.
The Eastham Historical Society
Oh, here I go again.
would like to welcome you to the Ranlett Tool Museum, located at the Swift-Daley complex, right next to the Eastham Post Office. Once an old tool shop and garage, the museum has evolved to include a working forge and displays of hundreds of fine examples of the sheer cleverness of our Yankee ancestors. Let's go inside and meet Mark Herman, the curator. So tell us about this corner, Mark, and all the tools.
Okay, most of these tools are from the 1800s or early 1900s possibly. On the right, the tall hook hanging on the wall is actually for raising and lowering coffins into the graveyard. To the left is a box, looks like it's on a sawhorse. That's a template for making cranberry crates, so they're all conformity in the same size.
Mhm.
And then on this one here, we have the big unit in the front hanging down as a hay rake, and that came from the Nicholson family in town. And so that was used, that could be as back to the late 1700s. To the left is the big beam from the original meeting house, and then there's all sorts of sickles and brush cutters to the right. Chester Ranlett was the first curator of the museum. He actually moved it from a shed in the schoolhouse to the workshop garage at the Swift-Daley House, and he was instrumental in putting it all together, getting all the tools, categorizing them. He was a fireman in Hopkinton who moved down to Eastham in 1983, and he bought the old town hall building, which he ended up restoring and living in. He would collect everything. He was an avid collector. Everybody knew him. He brought tools there, a lot of the blacksmith tools, original ones down from Hopkins.
Tell us about the forge, Mark.
The forge, also known as the blacksmith shop, is a hidden gem in the Tool Museum. The original forge was donated by George Milliken of Eastham, and then we made the hood for it. We have different blacksmiths come, like a Tool Discovery Day and other times. The first being Nora Babson, that makes jewelry and little trinkets. Then Rusty Gifford, he's into making knives and other things like the forge and the fire. And then myself, and I cut around, usually melting down a little pewter. And as you can see, I make the pewter spoons, toy soldiers, and we make, in the back left of that picture is fishing weights go inside the nets for fishermen. It's probably from the 1800s. A lot of the tools here, the Innovis came from Holliston, from Chester, and we have a lot of tools donated by locals and people who come and visit the museum and have something they'd like to throw, donate to. Tool Discovery Day is the highlight of our summer. Every July, we open the museum up and have it on display. We have all sorts of craftspeople come and show their wares and their tools, and it's open for the public to see everything we have. We have a table of what's its and tools that no one really knows what they are, and we try to stump the public with. People come in and say, do you know what this is for? And we've been stumped, and we've had 50 people that know what something is. That's a lot of fun. Then we have our vendors. This first lady here takes old wood and makes little bowls, salad bowls. It says wood for food. It's exotic hardwoods. Then we have a group of people with lathes, the turnips. They come in and they make salad bowls, wine glasses, little things with the lathe. That's a real big hit. We have an airplane collection. We have the window restoration of Cape Cod, New Orleans, from Orleans. This lady does all antique windows and restores them back like new. And then, like I said, they'll even let people look at, maybe try the lathe and look at them. There's a lot of nice things going on. This is the center of the tool museum with a workbench with all different tools laid out. The volunteer on the left with the red shirt is our famous boat model maker, Peter Williams. He does replica boats and repairs them. Very famous in the Royal Cape. As you can see, all the tools spread out on the table. There's all different kinds. We want to show people, see if they know any. One of the biggest highlights about it is when the fourth grade come through in the spring, this table is all cleared off. And we have hand drills and bit braces and saws, and all the fourth graders get to try their skills out and see what they can do. And they really enjoy it. On the left here, looking out the window, we have a broad axe above. We have a couple hand saws. There's all sorts of little measuring tools on the left. And vices in the middle, another picture of a center bench with a cranberry crate on it, and the back wall is loaded with antique kitchen gadgets, which are really old and very cool. People love that. In the middle, we have the three planes the original Nauset lighthouse keepers would use, probably the Three Sisters, to keep it in shape. Then we have a whole collection of antique saws, which are all different eras. They're all different years. We have post drill that we let the fourth graders use, and the last picture on the right is a little hand grinder, which is the sharpening tools that the kids really get a kick out of. On the floor here on the left, we have a big cranberry separator, and to the left of it is a scale from an old Eastham store, and it's got the name up top. The cranberry separators, every small cranberry farm would have one. The cranberries, they put them in, and the right ones would fall down to the box in the bottom. The rest would come out on a conveyor belt, and they would pull them and sell them. You can actually see one of these working in Dennis at Annie's Crannies, which is kind of a neat place. She has all the antique cranberry tools that you can see. The next thing is an apple press. It was actually used on the farm, I believe. It was from the Daleys. The next one is the fruit press, and it's kind of big, kind of nice. It's got the two barrels underneath, and you can just see it from the other side too. And then outside is just different farm implements you can see as you walk out the two here. Thank you for watching the video. At the moment, we're closed, and we hope to be open and running next summer, and hope to see everybody there. While we've been closed, we have been getting a lot of tool donations, which is what we need to keep the museum going. Local and other local tools are always the best, especially a tool with a good history. So we hope next year to be open, have the forge running more, and see everyone. Thank you very much.
Photos and videos courtesy of Sylvia Sullivan, Marca Daley, and the archives of the Eastham Historical Society. Narration, Mark Herman, curator of the Ranlett Tool Museum. Thank you very much for your continued support of the Eastham Historical Society.
And the gift shop, moving on. Any questions about the tool museum? Mark did such a good job. And it comes up again. There's another one.
Margaret, you said that the Swift-Daley House will be unwrapped in the spring. Do you have a specific date?
At least by May 15th,
Okay.
because that's, we belong to the Cape Cod Museum Trail, and they have, Museum Mondays in May. And our date is May 15th, so our museums will be open by then.
And then the other structures will be open at that
Yes,
time?
yeah. And we give tours. Last year we opened early, I think for one of the newcomers wanted a tour.
Mhm.
And so we'll do whatever we can to accommodate whoever would like to come visit. More on that later too.
Okay.
So the gift shop is really the hidden gem. And you can't imagine, this year they were open until December, right up until Christmas, every single week. And it's just amazing the things that people donate, that they find and go searching for, and then what it helps the society with, and the prices are so inexpensive. It's just wonderful. I go there all the time and get the best bargains. And Mary Ann Schaefer, our driving force behind it, is right here in the audience. Thank you, Mary Ann. So 25 Schoolhouse Road, and I overheard several of you as you came in saying, you know, your parents went there, and so my own connection, the same as yours, Lainey. My mom, my uncles, all of their best friends. We heard stories of this schoolhouse growing up. And we had Otto Nickerson was the teacher for the upper school, the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And he was also the principal of the school. And he was my sister's teacher and principal. He was my teacher and principal. And I was actually in his final year of teaching after 50 years. We had a graduation because he was retiring. And the reason he retired was so that he could join two friends, Fred Jewell and Ralph Chase, to work on opening and creating an Eastham Historical Society. And he couldn't do it while he was teaching or being the principal, and I think that's why he chose that year, because they were in the very beginning stages of thinking about preserving the history of Eastham for us. So I love this school, and I still spend hours there. And I think of my mom every time, and there are a couple of photos of her, and there's her report card, and I take it out and look at it sometimes. And the report cards are very different from what they are today. And it's one aspect that people always comment on when they come into the schoolroom. I show them a copy of what students were graded on. So I don't have a video. We do have a video on our YouTube channel, but we change the exhibits in this museum, not super often, but often enough that if we want to encourage visitors to come back, and we don't want to have the same thing for years and years and years. We do have our standby, the ones that, yes, but others we change. So I am going to give you a virtual tour here, and we'll pretend we're walking around the schoolhouse. And again, we have self-guided tour books, and if you want to do it on your own. We have a lot of QR codes for the exhibits, which provide extra details and context and take you to websites where you can get much more information than we are able to put on here. The archives are housed in the school building, not in the building, under the building, in the climate controlled basement. And so I spend a lot of my time down there too. I always call it the cellar. And I know I shouldn't, but I grew up, we had a down cellar. And so I catch myself and try to say basement. So it was a one-room school. I was explaining when you first came in, and this was it, the central school. It was built in 1869, and there were hardly any trees in Eastham. Eastham trees had been, they needed them for building, they needed them for construction, they needed them for the salt works. When the railroad trains came down, the sparks would cause fires. It was a farming community, so huge fields. If you ever get a chance to see, or if you saw the talk I gave on what's in a name, how Eastham beaches, rivers, roads got their names, there's a section in there that's all about how Eastham changed, geographically, physically changed through the years. But the Historical Society was founded in 1963, the year after Otto retired. And it looked like this. This was their very first project. And 2 years later, it looked like that. And it was wonderful, and everyone worked on it. And I have to tell you, their records of it are so wonderful. Fred Jewell, who was, we considered him a friend from the time we were first grade. He was this wonderful man who had retired here, and he would show videos not videos, 18 or 8 millimeter or 16 millimeter, movies to the kids at the elementary school, and artifacts from his travels all over the world. He was the very first museum curator and kept, yeah.
Excuse me. I don't know if you remember, but he used to ride a bicycle everywhere.
Everywhere.
And we thought it was so strange. He was not young.
We have a map that he put together, bike tour of Eastham,
Yeah.
with all of the historical sites
Yeah.
listed. He had a printing press in
Yeah.
his garage, and I remember one year, he made my twin sister and me a birthday card, and we just kept unfolding it. And it was,
Yeah, and he lived in that little house that's.
the
opposite
Shaw
town
House, right on the corner of Locust,
And, yeah.
which used to be County Road.
Yeah, that's right.
The whale jawbones, I don't want to keep you, if you need to go beyond, feel free to walk out. But it'll take about 20 minutes to go through the schoolhouse if you don't mind. And I first of all, I'll say, I can't give details. It takes about 45 minutes anyway to go through the schoolhouse, but I'm going to show snippets and give you highlights or hidden things that you might not know, and invite you to come to the school. If you can come to the COA, you can come to the schoolhouse, and I will meet you there whenever you would like to do it in person. The whalebones went away with Hurricane Bob in 1991. They were blown down, as were most of the trees in the yard. Today, it's snow. I took lots of pictures of the building in the snow because we hardly ever get them until this year. There it is. And today, changing exhibits. Our video from COVID is outdated, and I'm going to welcome you on a tour. So this is the entryway And you walk in to a room that has a big 6-foot-long countertop with Samuel F. Brackett sign on it. And that's because it came from Brackett's General Store. Now we're the Friends of the COA, yeah, had their thrift store. And there's another one down in the basement, and I'm trying to get it for the new wing so that we can have it. I think we might be able to. But we have books, we have young adult and children's fiction, and Edith, thank you. So Edith is one of the best procurers of books for us, and she's so knowledgeable about them. And this is a little, this is to the founders. There's Otto Nickerson, Fred Jewell, Ralph Chase, and Captain Robert Sparrow. And so that's a little history as you walk into the front door. Welcome to the schoolroom. And this is the room that several of your parents or relatives went to. As you come in the door, the potbelly stove is on your left. It's not the original potbelly stove, but there was one just like it here. And it also had a pipe that ran the length of the ceiling, because a single potbelly stove without that pipe wouldn't do much for the kids in the front of the room. The desks in this room, most of them are not from Eastham. They were donated from all over the states, because the Eastham desks went down the street a quarter of a mile to the new elementary school. So, yes.
I remember the story from my father, who was going to school here one day, cleaning out his desk and walking down the road to the new elementary.
Yeah, Mom told, same, they were, same story.
Yeah.
Not only that, but, okay, so, little story. 1869, this schoolhouse, the single one opened. 1908, the one wing from North Eastham, which they consider by Brackett's store, that was moved up and it became a 2-wing schoolhouse. And then the next year, the identical building, they were triplets, came from South Eastham. South Eastham, it was up near Hay Road. And that was moved and it formed that 3-wing T. And then the room in the middle was filled in so that became a manual training room. And so they had 3 grades. Florence Keith had grades 1, 2, 3 for 37 years in one room. Virginia Horton had 4, 5, 6, and Otto Nickerson had 7, 8, and 9 for a couple of years. And the 9th year was for the students who did not go up to Orleans for high school. If they were going to Orleans for high school, they went in 9th grade. If they didn't, it was too far or they needed them, they stayed in Eastham and they learned practical skills for life for that 9th year. Yeah. Next slide, and I'll explain some of that progressive to you. The 2 flags in the front of the room on the far right, the flag on the left has 37 stars, because that's how many states we had in 1869. And the flag on the right has 48, because the school closed. They built the new school in 1936. On February 1st, 1937, the marching band picked up their instruments. The students, your dad and my mom, picked up their books. The desks had been moved just before that, and they all marched down in a parade to that new school, a quarter of a mile down, and they never forgot it. And it's one of my memories, because it's just a memory that's been passed down to me from my mom. There are 2 entrances. One of the doors is closed, the one by the flags, and the other one is open. One was for boys and one was for girls. I went to the school. And the maps on the walls are maps they're not dated. And so I asked people when they come in, if people could help me. People from Northern Europe, from Finland, from Norway and Sweden who have come in have helped me to date this map because the boundaries changed and the names of the cities changed. And those are the maps that our parents used. There's a little desk in the corner that Otto Nickerson had, and it has 46 different lessons. This is paper he got from Sears and Roebuck in 1924. There's a little, you can roll the lessons. Right here, it's showing birds. What they look like, where they nest, the size of their eggs, and color. So everything is practical, so that the kids, would know how to do it. I'm gonna keep it here. This is the teacher's view. This is the teacher's desk. That's the original desk. It's up on a little dais there. We look back towards the back of the room, and there's a bookshelf back there with all kinds of books from the 1800s through the time of 1930s and we let the students use them. Hands-on, yet they play school in there all the time. One more picture, I think, from the front. Yes, this is an original flag that was in the room. It's a little bit tattered, but it's there. We're looking behind the teacher's desk, and there's a cabinet in the corner that features those 3 iconic Eastham teachers, Florence Keith, Virginia Horton, and Otto Nickerson. And several spelling bee trophies by George Romner and Russell Chase and all the old names. We have lots of memorabilia and artifacts. Students, and close up, there's an 1833 globe in the corner, and there is a enamel pitcher and basin, and we explained to the children that that's the water fountain. The students brought their own tin cups from home, and they got their water from that. The older boys cut the wood for the wood-burning stove. They helped there was an older gentleman who was like janitor custodian. And I put the map here. Some of the countries are Burma, Assam, Siam, French, Indochina, Dutch Guiana. And there's a whole map up above the US one that shows all of the territories that the US owned around the world also. So people are really interested in that. Here are 3 different kinds of students who use the schoolroom this year. I mean, now, the 4th, or Patsy, is it 4th or 5th grade that come to the schoolhouse? Fourth graders. And 5th graders go to the Swift-Daley complex and they used to come for a full day and dress in costume as they are in this photo. Last Veterans Day, we always open the museum on Veterans and Memorial Day because we have that new memorial to our veterans out front. So we thought we should have something inside also. The Boy Scouts always help out there. And I asked them if they could date the map. I told them that some of our visitors did, and I think the 4 in front are the history buffs. Do you recognize any of those Boy Scouts, Alex? Are you up there?
Yeah, I recognize them all.
And did you recognize Emily Carr?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, she loves Emily, the young girl, has, been a docent with us for 2 years, and she loves it. And I'm hoping she can come back again this summer, but she's graduating, so I don't know. And Luke, the tall young man, he was our intern. He was going to be a senior at Emmanuel College in Boston, and he needed an internship, and he was very interested. He thought maybe in archives or museum studies. And so he was with us for the whole summer. It was one, I was like, oh, man. The lower photo is, the class of 1962. We held a 60-year reunion. And they allowed, we actually had lunch in the new elementary school in Mrs. Garino, Mrs. Maycumber, and Mr. Nickerson's classrooms. And then we walked up the street, we reversed the walk that our parents had done. 11 parents of students here went to this school. And I found all of their report cards from 1st grade through 8th grade. And I put them together from the old ledgers. And so some of them you'll see, they're on the desk or they're holding them up. I said, look on the desk for either your name or a name that is very familiar. And then they found their parents' report cards. So that was really fun. But we'll leave the schoolroom now because I know we're almost ready to close. And we're going to go into the Eastham room, Eastham's history. So we walk in this door and behind us is the first people's exhibit. And that's, you can't see that because this is taken from up above. Don't ask me how I took this picture, but I did. And as I say to on the tours, we begin with the first peoples, and this is in the self-guided tour if they want, because they were the first people. And then we move around to our Mayflower exhibit. We move to our veterans. We brought in some children's toys because we didn't have anything for children in this room. But we're going to have a main room. One of the entryways off the schoolroom is going to be dedicated to vintage children's games. We have a few and they love them. And so we're going to do something with that this summer. The Penniman exhibit used to be much larger, but we whittled it down a little to make room for the veterans. And then Henry Beston, the Buster sisters could not have walked down and seen him every summer because he was really only here for 1 year. And that was in the 20s. But the legend of him and the outermost house lives. And then we go around to the ship's corner where I'll explain when we get to the photos because I've shown pictures of all of these. And there's the life-saving service, a center exhibit in the middle, a Bridger line throwing gun for the EFA and the EVFA, and I'm not going to tell you what that is until later. Some of you probably know, I hope. And then the Perth Amboy story, when Nauset Beach was shelled by the U-boats, 1918. This is a brand new exhibit that actually my brother put together, and I think it's wonderful. George Abbott Award. George Abbott was a historian and lover of history and member of the society and of the Eastham Historic Commission. And they have been, I'll explain when we get to that. Eastham had 2 railroad depots and an airport. And so we have an exhibit for them. And then schoolhouse memorabilia, which is going to actually go into the schoolroom when we have our new. So, first peoples. This is the wall that you see as you come in. Carrie Holm is the woman who's in the picture. You can't see her. She made the basket and she made the pot for us. And she was our expert on making sure that we got all of our history and the artifacts and everything is correct in this exhibit. So you'll notice that there's lots of writing on the walls. And in this room, there are narratives and there are labels for practically everything. And there are also QR codes where you can get more information. The schoolroom, we don't have those things. That's more of as it was, but everything here is labeled. And then this is another corner, Marcus Hendricks, one of the Wampanoag's picture and a map of the Wampanoag tribes on the Cape. And then our arrowhead, you don't call them arrowheads anymore, you call them points. But we have a collection of 1,000. And Dan Zotto researched them and wrote a report. And the upper picture there shows some of that collection that he really put together. I just made up the signs for him, but it's fabulous. And we move around the room to the Mayflower exhibit. The model of the Mayflower is on loan to us. And the 3 commemorative stones, the brass plaques on the granite stones below the cabinet are in memory of the 3 young people who came over on the Mayflower, Giles and Constance Hopkins and Lieutenant Joseph Rogers. And there's other memorabilia inside that cabinet. And there are 2 the dress, I won't call them costumes, it was their regular dress that they wore. And there's an explanation of some of that, but Edith, are you responsible for those?
Probably.
Yeah. Are you handy with the sewing machine?
I did not make the women's costume
But you did do the men's, Lieutenant. Yes.
And not very authentic, but.
But it looks, not the same material.
No.
But anyway, so then we go around to the veterans exhibit. The list that we have of the veterans was made by Jim Owens and illustrated by Jim Owens. And the cabinet, the very first cabinet focuses on the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. And there were 4 people. And the way I decided who we would look at is I went through Soldiers and Sailors of the Revolutionary War, the big book, and I kept looking for references to Eastham men. And Solomon Higgins came up over and over and over again. Matthew Hoppy Mayo came up for War of 1812. Isaac Snow came up for the Revolutionary War, and Joshua Crosby III. So it's histories and QR codes to give you more history if you want, and the campaigns that they were in. And Albert Snow, retired from Orleans, gave us many, many photos, illustrated, annotated photos. So Isaac Snow and Joshua Crosby. He trained militiamen and was involved in the Battle of Rock Inlet. Rock Harbor, but it was Rock Inlet back then. And Joshua Crosby was at the Battle of Tripoli in 1809. He was a Marine. And then this is the USS Constitution. And he was on that during the War of 1812. When each of them died, they were the oldest surviving veteran of their particular wars on the Cape. And so right across from that is the Civil War exhibit and another of Jim Owens' lists of Civil War. The one person I wanted to focus on, we have Francis Penniman here, younger brother of Captain Edward Penniman, but Atkins Higgins he's not on this list. And I thought, why? He was there for 4 years. Well, that's why. He volunteered. And this is a list of those who were drafted. This gentleman was there for the whole war from Eastham. He was with the 2nd Engineer, Company B of the Engineers. And he, at the end of the war, he survived. He put together this memory box, and it's hanging on our wall. And people spend more time in front of that memory box than anywhere else. And he has money, he has his sewing kit, he has his tin cup, you know. You have to come, if only for this. Photographs that he brought with us. And this touches my heart. It's an A-flat key of a pianoforte or harpsichord that was in a house that they were ordered, a plantation that they were ordered to burn down. Oh. And he saved the A-flat key and brought it back with him. I'm like, I had goosebumps when I first read that, so I couldn't not include it. Here's the children's display. Here are some games. We used to call this one Chinese checkers. Didn't we? I don't know what they called it. Couldn't find it. And then the stick with the hoop, we have lots of those for the kids. They love trying that out. And these dolls and skates, wooden skates, a children's accordion, and then Captain Penniman and diaries and Bibles and little histories. And we moved to Henry Beston, who, as I said, stayed really a year on the Outer Beach. And we have quite an extensive display of him, and it's all illustrated. The Ship's Corner, the most significant thing there is the ship's wheel from the Castagna, 1917, freezing weather in February. Most of the crew froze. When young Bernie Collins was 11 years old, his father was the life-saving captain. He was the only one that was small enough, light enough in this freezing weather to use the bridge's buoy and go out to get this, whoever of the crew were still on the ship. And you'll notice that there is one spoke missing, and that's because the helmsman was frozen to the wheel. And young Bernie had to make the decision of what to do to bring him in off the ship. And the decision was, in my opinion, a good one. You know, you're not supposed to wreck the ship, you're supposed to save the ship at all costs. But last summer, the people who donated this wheel came into the museum. And I saw a family, 2 teenagers, and they came in and they said, is it there? Is it there? And I said, may I help you? And their mother and grandmother had donated this. And they still have the ship's bell down in Texas. And I said, if you ever want to donate, we're here. So we have a life-saving exhibit. And this baking box, Dave and Marcia Bromley redid it for us. It was really awful. It was a mess because it had fallen years ago. But they reworked it and fixed it. They give tours down at Provincetown every Thursday in the summer. They're wonderful, those reenactments of the life-saving. This is the Northern Pacific Rescue. And down here is the Nauset Station crew in wintertime, because they went out every day, no matter the weather. And Grandpa Rongner, Ingwe Rongner, it was the head. He's right there of the life-saving crew, which became the Coast Guard. I think by now it was the Coast Guard. And so more Coast Guardsmen, Abbott Walker is an Eastham name. The tally boards were in French and in English, and they got shot out on a line from a Lyle gun to the ship. And they had instructions for how to attach the lines and the hawsers to whatever they needed to do so that that breeches buoy would work. And those were the two international languages that they always used. This is the EFA exhibit in the EV, Eastham Firemen's Association and Eastham Volunteer Firemen's Association, the precursor of this one. They've given us this Bridger line throwing gun. And it's like the Lyle gun, but it's used for fires. And it's used especially in cities when high tenements. So think of Francis Perkins in the Shirtwaist Fire. Yesterday was the anniversary of it. If they had had some kind of Bridger line that they could then pull it up, you know, all of those hundreds of children wouldn't have jumped to their deaths. The three pictures, I know you can't see them. They're the original, they're the charter members of Eastham's Volunteer Firemen's Association. Nate Nickerson Jr. was the first captain of the volunteer firemen. My stepfather, Alfred Mills, is there when he came home from the war. And every single year, the Volunteer Firemen's Association and the Grange, remember the Eastham Grange? Some of you, they wrote every month to every Eastham serviceman throughout 1943, 1944, 1945, and the Korean War to tell them what was happening in Eastham. And we have those letters because Mo Wiley, Myrtle Wiley, his grandmother, is one of the ones who was instrumental in doing this. And he has donated them all to us, and my dream is to publish that somehow. The Perth Ambroid, this is what the U-boats would do. They would stop the vessels, the fishing vessels, whatever vessel, they harassed the coastline. And they would give it a piece of paper that said, you know, you have to abandon this ship. They would let them get into their lifeboats, and then they would blow up the fishing vessel or the life vessel. And this is the tugboat that was shelled. This is the young captain who went up in the flying boat from Chatham Naval Station to try and drop a bomb. It was a dud, so they didn't get it. A second plane went up, he dropped a bomb. That was a dud also. They dropped a wrench, it didn't do anything. But for me, the most interesting thing, some of the fishermen on these boats recognized some of the crew members of the U-156 boat. They had been fishermen together up in the Grand Banks. And when war came, the German fishermen went home to fight for the fatherland. And it was like, oh my gosh. So there's a QR code, you can get the whole story. But I just get excited about it. George Abbott Awards, these are some of the homes that have received the award. And there's a QR code, and if you click on it, you get the architectural history and the historical history of those homes. And it's to recognize people who do whatever they can to keep the historical integrity and character of the homes that they own. The depots, I told you, so there was a North Eastham, and they were the center of commerce for Eastham. We have a wonderful model and lots of photos, and this was made by Jim Siebold. This is the one on Samoset Road. Just fabulous. And the airport. And we're going to have a new exhibit from the airport because my cousin, Jeannie Parker, who was my uncle's daughter, she just gave me this past winter all kinds of photos. Did you know that Santa Claus used to come to Eastham in a plane? At the airfield. And we have photos of him getting out of his plane and all the kids waiting around in the early 40s. And during a storm, a plane it didn't crash land, but it needed to land, and there were no lights. You're nodding your head like you know this. And so the call went out, and all the guys from Eastham that had cars went out, and they lined the runway lane right off of Massasoit, Riggs Field. So we're gonna have more on that in the new wing. These are some photos from the school and the schoolhouse. Eastham Elementary had 7 different music classes for their students. It was really important for them, from beginning band, percussion for the first graders, and then beginning band, and then all the way up through the orchestra, which was very well known and even traveled. We have documents from the archives, and we have 3 documents and deeds that we highlight. This is our oldest deed in the collection. It's the Joseph, Cole Rogers deed from 1697. This is a document signed by John Adams when he was governor of Massachusetts. And he's appointing Alicia Knowles to some kind of commission position. And on the other side of John Adams' signature, his signature is the voting tally of George Washington's 1789 election. Because paper was so expensive. And this paper was made of material as well as paper. It was a mix of paper, linen, whatever, that if the backside was blank, they used it again a few years later. Because so that's up there. These are the lyrics to America. Samuel Francis Smith wrote them. And he used to write out copies and give them to friends. This one happens to have been copied out in 1895, and it's dated, and he died a week later. So it has some significance for us. And our newest project, we're leaving this room and going into the brand new wing right up here. We're going to be cleaning these windows. On the original wing, Patty Jennings and Bev Hilferty cleaned the windows. Because it's all in the notes that Fred Jewell left. So we need everyone in the town's help, whatever we can. Here's a plan by our vision of what it will be like. And we'll have portable displays, more portable than what we have now, so that we can change them around. And we're going to focus on the people of Eastham and their stories. So we're going to have interactive, you can listen. We have 90 oral histories of people from Eastham, and 24 video histories, oral history project, and genealogy research. So we went to many museums all over the Cape, but Wealthy and Truro were so helpful, and we go back to them all the time. This is in Wellfleet, and this is what we're going to do in Eastham. So the Boy Scouts are going to have their cubby hole, and the baseball team, Little League. We have baseball teams in Eastham from 1907, 1920s, 1950. In 51 they won the Cape Championship, and then all of our genealogy books and things are going to be available for people to come in and work on them. And so portable displays, something like that maybe, so that, we can move it around. And you may be getting a postcard in the mail, and it will look like this. And it will be asking you for money. And if you could support us. And we really hope that you can, because we're doing whatever we can to bring Eastham history to life. And we really need the help of our community. And I just want to say thank you to our docents and those who volunteer. These are our docents from last year, this list. At the Schoolhouse, at the Swift-Daley, the Tool Museum, the gift shop, and the archives. And it looks like a lot of people, but we always need and want and appreciate more help. So we have special events, and there's a whole other crew of people that come to the presentations, summer presentations, that will help us at the antique show, that have the plant and white elephant sales and the, you know, that kind of stuff. So I kept you for a long, long time, but I thank you very, very much.